how did I start writing? Wow. Okay. Anybody who reads as much as I do is going to have some idea that they can write. And I've written history papers and short story assignments and this and that. I had writing of the short story at Ole Miss with a guy named Barry Hanna. The year he won the Pulitzer for one of his short story collections. That's sort of like having Albert Einstein for your physics instructor, kind of a learning cliff instead of a learning curve. But I never really finished anything. Partly the workload, partly the ADD. I just never really finished anything that was worth publishing. I'm going to go take my glasses off, trying to cut some of the glare. So let's see. 2016, an army buddy of mine named Seth Bailey used me as a minor character in his third novel titled Edge of the City, which involved a large fictional gunfight in the city of Dallas, in which a whole bunch of his friends made appearances as fictional versions of themselves. And he dusted off one of my old army nicknames, which was Professor, which was not meant as a compliment. And I ended up making an appearance in his novel as a fictionalized version of myself. Then he said, hey, all of you guys who I put in my book, you need to take your characters and write them, and we can have this whole shared fictional space. It'll be like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but with less spandex, and it'll be less gay, and we'll have guns and drugs and all kinds of fun stuff. It'll be great because Seth makes me look rational. That takes work, but Seth makes me look rational. So the next year, I'm talking to my friend Jennifer. My friend Jennifer is this gorgeous little Korean chick, about yay tall, yay wide. Just petite and cute. And she was also summa cum laude at Harvard Business School. She is a whole lot of smart and a whole lot of not especially stable. When a brain like that gets a little wiggly at that high RPM, hold on, it's going to be a wild ride. So anyway, she's complaining to me about her job in investment banking and the people she has to work with. And I said, dear, I'll make you a deal. I'll get my hands on a whole bunch of money, and you can come for work for me as my money manager. And that way you won't have to work for that guy anymore. And she said, Dan, you're a disabled vet who lives in the backwoods of Tennessee and brings home maybe 35 grand a year in a good year. You don't need a money manager, and you sure as hell can't afford me. How are you going to pull this off? And I said, well, I can either hit Powerball, and she said, I'm not even going to dignify that with an answer. I said, or I could find one of those 20-foot shipping containers full of drug cartel money that's hidden in the barns. Drugs come north, drugs go out of the containers refill with cash, and then they get smuggled back down south. Find out where one of those containers is sitting. I make 15 or 20 phone calls, put the band back together, 3 or 4 days of rehearsals. We go hit it, and then I'm going to call you because I'm going to need your help laundering $500 million. And she just stared, and she said, wait, you know how to do that? And I said, dear, an infantry raid is an infantry raid. I don't care if you're hitting an Iraqi army headquarters facility, robbing a bank, or in this case, hitting a barn with a shipping container in it. Intelligence, reconnaissance, near side security, far side security. There's a process. The dance is the dance, and it is what it is. And then I thought about it for a second, and I remembered what Seth had said about writing our own characters. And I thought, wait a minute, I can do this. I can write this. And I opened up a Word document, and I started pounding away on my laptop. And all of a sudden, I got 10,000 words. Then I got 20,000 words. And then I got 30,000 words. I'm like, too long to be a short story. It might turn into a novel. And I keep going, and I keep going, and I keep going. And I get to about 70,000 words when my self-confidence gauge goes from here to about here. And I'm telling myself, this sucks. Nobody's ever going to want to read this. Why am I wasting my time on this? This is bullshit. Nobody's going to want to read this. So I turned to my buddy Chris, who I was in grad school with at Norwich. And Chris at that point was an active duty Air Force lieutenant colonel. And is now, having made Bird and then since retired, he's an editor for Raconteur Press, which is one of our peers in the indie sci-fi military fiction game. So I sent it off to Chris. He said, give me a day. Then I wait a day. He says, give me a little more time, because he's got a wife and kids and more of a life than I do. And he messages me back. He says, if you don't finish this, I'm going to drive up there. I'm going to fucking kill you. Really? You're not large enough. He said, no, I'll just hang out a couple 100 yards back with a rifle. Finish this or I'm going to kill you. I'm like, who's going to want to read this? He said, dude, you wrote the classic heist novel. It is a Guy Ritchie novel. He said, I hear the narrator as Jason Statham. He said, it's Snatch. It's Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. He said, keep going. You got to finish this. I'm like, man, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm poking at it and I keep going and I keep going. And eventually I get about 120,000 words. I'm used to Tom Clancy novels when I was a kid that were about that thick. I write long. I do. I write longer than the modern genre conventions say I should. But I think about it and I'm like, okay. And I'm almost done.